When our kids were growing up, we tried to expand their gender categories just a little bit. So instead of saying to them, these are boy parts and these are girl parts, we taught them that most boys have penises and most girls have vaginas.
Hi, everybody. Auntie Speaks. Welcome back. Please subscribe. It helps me out a bit. Like, comment, and share. We're going to look at this lovely individual. Now, I would not be commenting on this individual at all if she didn't do a TED Talk talking about how 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds know their gender. This stuff has got to stop. And this is a pediatrician. A pediatrician. Let's check her out.
Are you a mommy or a daddy? The little boy called to me one day when I went to pick my youngest son up from the daycare playground. He looked up at me curious, waiting for my answer. But often, in my role as a pediatrician and as a parent, it's been asked with curiosity, without judgment. A child's genuine attempt to put me into the categories known to them. Now, this little guy was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I could tell by his tone that he was asking out of curiosity. He genuinely wanted to know which of the 2 adult categories known to him did I fit into. So I bent down and I said to him, you know what? I'm not a mommy or a daddy. I'm a mappa.
I'm a mappa. I'm a mappa. Yes. Okay. Can you imagine how confused this little kid is going to be by this conversation? Is it necessary to confuse kids? I'm sorry. Before 5 seconds ago, before being a victim was super, super important, and you just couldn't be, an androgynous person. You couldn't be a butch lesbian. That's what we used to call them. It was not a bad word. And you were fine with it. And you would have told that little kid, I'm a mommy. That's what you would have told the kid. I'm a mommy. But no, you're non-binary. So you're a mappa. Narcissism much?
A mappa, he said. What's that? Well, I explained, a mappa is like a mommy and a daddy, both. Oh, okay, he said. So then, what's your favorite dinosaur? And what it took this little guy seconds to accept, it often takes grown-ups a lot longer to unlearn and realize that more exists among human beings than can be answered with the simple question, are you a boy or a girl?
Unlearn? Unlearn? Jawohl, mein Führer. You gonna send us off to the gulag to re-educate us? Because there's more things than men and women? No, there's men and women. And then there's all the fun categories that you have put together to make yourself not, average. Because being a lesbian just, isn't fun. Yeah, it's not cool enough. I got to be non-binary. Right? Right? And you're like, oh, this kid just understands. It has to be like dinosaurs. No, the kid's probably like, I don't know what this person is saying, but the next thing that pops in my head is dinosaurs, so I'm going to say that. So she concludes that she's accepted by the child, validated by the child. It's only those adults who won't validate me.
So let's start with how kids understand gender identity. Well, from the age of about 2, kids can understand gender differences. Now, this is mostly based on physical characteristics and anatomy as they sort and put people into categories, boys and girls, mommies and daddies. Kids at 2 are actually very good at putting things into categories, and they're very concrete and binary thinkers, so this is a fun and easy task for them. As they move into age 3 and 4, they then begin to figure out where they fit. They've seen the categories and they're turning the lens inward to discover where they fit in the categories that have been explained to them, most of which are boy and girl. Now, They often develop more sophisticated understanding of physical characteristics and anatomy around this time, and they're often not shy about sharing their discoveries with us. They may exclaim, "I'm a girl and I have a vagina." And that may happen in the pediatrician's office or in the checkout line at the grocery store. They have figured out their place in the world and they are claiming it. It shouldn't surprise you then that some transgender kids are also claiming their identities as young as 3 and 4 years old. They know the categories, they know how they should feel inside based on their anatomy, and they also know that the way that they see themselves doesn't line up with other people's expectations.
No. No, 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 no. I don't know what kids you are talking about, but I have never had a 2-year-old come up to me and describe their private parts. Okay? Their knowledge of boys and girls is very rudimentary, other than they're icky, until like 6 or 7 or maybe 10 or 12 or something like that. You do not know that you are trans. Know that you are trans from 2 or 4. Your brain can't even understand those concepts unless you tell them that it's possible to be something other. Now, there's a lot of data that boys who are trans know from a very young age. That is correct. But that doesn't mean that if a young boy wants to wear a dress, that does not mean that they're trans. It does not mean that they're non-binary. And if you confuse children from a young age, you can create lots of problems.
From as young as some kids can talk, they're explaining to their parents the truth about their identities. Now, as kids move beyond into the age of 4 and 5, they're starting to figure out gender role, or what does it mean to be a boy or a girl? This is when kids are understanding how they should act based on their gender identities, and they're learning about concepts like boys' toys and girls' toys for the first time, which, even if we don't teach it to them, all it takes is one trip to Target to figure out which toys belong to who. And so they're first figuring out what do they like. They're trying on different ways of dressing, different costumes. They're doing pretend and imaginary play. They're playing with different types of toys. They're figuring out first what they like, and then is it okay or not? And this can actually be a hard time for all kids, not just kids who are transgender and gender diverse, as they first figure out what they love, and then they figure out might they be punished in big or small ways for being themselves.
I just hate this. I just absolutely just hate everything that this lady is saying. We fought for years, lady, to not be placed in categories. I was a tomboy. I loved to get dirty. I loved to play with trucks. I tried to follow my older brothers around as much as I possibly can. Or could. Sorry, could. I'm still trying to follow them around, I think. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. But now you want to place them in a box. If you want to play with girl toys and you're a boy, then you must be transgender. Yeah, you must be transgender. And if you are a girl and you like to get dirty and you like to play sports, well, then you must be a boy or non-binary. We have to place a label on you. Who's hurting kids here? Before we just let kids be kids. And you were a girly boy or you were a tom girl. And that was fine. But no, now you have to place a label on them. Give them puberty blockers. Oh, why don't you just take them into surgery when they're 15? Yeah, lady. I want to remind you that this is a pediatrician. She sees children on a daily basis. Are you scared yet?
When our kids were growing up, we tried to expand their gender categories just a little bit. So instead of saying to them, these are boy parts and these are girl parts, we taught them that most boys have penises and most girls have vaginas, just to leave open the possibility that biology isn't destiny, and that how someone feels inside or their gender identity may not line up with expectations based on anatomy. One of those consequences being that in some studies, trans and gender diverse kids are 8 to 9 times more likely to try to take their own life. And we also know that the world is changing. We know that in 2016, in the state of Minnesota, when we asked 9th and 11th graders to describe their gender identities to us, that 2.8% of them, or nearly 3%, identified as transgender and gender nonconforming. That's close to 3 times what we've previously found in adult studies.
3 times. I just want to highlight that. 3 times what the gay and lesbian population is. The transgender population before this was like, oh my God, like 0.03% for boys. For girls, it was like 0.003. It's very rare. Very rare. So why do you think we have an explosion? Why do we have an explosion of young kids claiming that they're trans? If it was not a trend, we would see the exact same trend in older individuals. And we do not. We do not. So what we are doing is confusing young kids.
We also know that we're hearing new words and new language to describe gender identity all the time, mostly from the young people in our lives. Words like genderqueer, gender expansive, gender fluid, non-binary, bigender, agender, and on and on. We know that kids today are discovering their gender identities now more than ever, and they're finding new language and new models to share those identities with us. So you're thinking, I get it. This is a trend. This is a fad. This is cool. This is the next new thing. And my kid and the kid in my kid's class and the neighbor kid, and actually, maybe even you, Dr. Gepford, you're part of this new wave, this cool trend of being transgender and gender diverse.
Yes. Yes. It's certainly not cool enough nowadays just to be lesbian or to be androgynous. No, that's not cool. It's cooler to be non-binary. So I'm going to tell a 2-year-old that they can be a boy or a girl, whatever they like. This is just craziness. And the scariest thing about this is a pediatrician. And she doesn't know the data. She doesn't know that anywhere from 70 to 95% of these kids, if left alone, will go back to normalcy, will learn to live in their gender. Okay? Leave the kids alone. Okay, guys, this is super dangerous. Please share this. Please like and subscribe. Pass this on to people. We've got to wake people up. I will see you on the next one.